We'll move to the next speaker. I hope Abhaji is there.
Sir, I'm here.
Oh. So the next speaker is subject is illegal detentions and custody by police. Actually, we had thought of this is such a huge topic, a separate workshop altogether on the custodial upkeep, the custodial torture, and the illegal detentions. But while speaking to Abhaji, she mentioned this subject, so we thought okay, maybe at least we can touch here as well. Now, Abhaji is a lawyer since 1983. She is a former visiting law faculty at the National Police Academy, Hyderabad. She is also advisor to the Supreme Court Gender Sensitization and Internal Complaints Committee. She has been an ex-member of the Delhi Legal Services Authority. She is on board of the several NGOs, and she has also been instrumental in making films, digital and printing material on the various legal issues. She has mentioned there has been a film, Bol Basanto. There is a Sir, we can unmute others. Ramchandran sir, we should unmute everybody else. So with these words, now I would request Abhaji to start the deliberations, please.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you for this privilege to be amongst very knowledgeable and experienced people. Policing is, over the years, has been a very favorite field for me to work on. And basically, it's one of the things that impacts the common person hugely, the common person's life. जैसे कि सर ने अभी उपाध्याय सर ने अभी लास्ट में बताया कि पूरी मतलब तो आपकी पूरी जिंदगी का कुछ लम्हों में ही तबाह हो सकते हैं. Interface with the police can do that to you. Now, since most of the concerns that I was to bring to the table have been in one way or the other been raised by the earlier speakers, there's just one thing that I would like to focus on is that of late one is seeing that there is a trend that there is more of focus and a hue and cry on the big cases. It was always there. As we know that the jurisprudence in law, in all the good jurisprudence has been actually developed on the people who were able to approach the law, who could hire good lawyers, and those lawyers made good arguments before perhaps good judges, and we got good jurisprudence. We are also getting some bits of good jurisprudence now in the same manner. Lekin my concern is that, you know, what is happening to those Moti Rams, those Nathu Banjaras, those Buddhan Shabars, on whose basis there were actual cases, somebody took it up and all. Are they still able to approach the law? Are they still able to fight that whole, you know, all the things that we've been talking about? Ki utha lena, you know, those 107s, those 151s, those petty crime people, what is happening to them actually? And I think that that is, as you said, sir, that, you know, that should be the focus of our internal reforms thing, because we don't need any additional legislation. We don't need Arnesh Kumar, because whenever now you talk to people, everybody says, oh, that's Arnesh Kumar. So Arnesh Kumar is not new law. Arnesh Kumar has been the fundamental law of this country ever since the constitution came into force. It's always been the statutory law that unnecessary arrest need not be made, and arrest is, it's not mandatory to make arrests. I can see that Dr. K.P. Singh is here in this conference as well. And, you know, we had some very interesting discussions when I worked with him in the Haryana Police Academy and with Mr. V.N. Rai. So my concern is that what is happening to the little people, the small people who are at the mercy in the police station. So this seminar, it started with, you know, this whole thing that's coming up now, and everybody seems to become a buzzword. Process is the punishment. The process has always been a punishment for the common person, and interface with the law, even with civil litigation, leave alone criminal. फौजदारी में तो जो चला जाता है वो तो समझिए कि वो तो बिल्कुल एकदम मतलब परेशान. Like you said that not everybody has a criminal mind and they may not even have committed a crime thinking that it's a crime. So the interface with the legal system of whether it is civil litigation, it's a civil matter, or much worse criminal matter, is a punishment. At the same time, we have something, which is called, that the procedure is the handmaiden of justice, and the procedure is supposed to be the protector. And when procedure has taken a backseat for so long, and when we have had recurrent things, coming up as reminders, we had DK Basu in 1997. DK Basu, nobody followed. Nobody followed. And Dr. Singh knows, that we have gone thana to thana, asking them ki aapka board kidhar hai. And they have argued against it at the thana level and at the senior most DG level. I have had that experience that they have argued against DK Basu, and DK Basu, who was he unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. He was the most delightful and very deep thinking person. Yet he was the most cursed person amongst the policing cadres. I mean, I've literally, people had cursed that, who is this DK Basu, जिसने हमारी जिंदगी ऐसे not followed for many, many years. Besides that, there were other judgments which were not followed for many, many years or ever, or are not even followed today. Nandini Satpathy is still today not followed in any thana. If you go and start looking at the 160, nobody is even actually issuing 160 notices for recording, leave alone not letting women come. So as you go lower down the social scale, and I'm very happy that somebody spoke about going to the my interface with the probationers. I've always told them that you will be taken to a visit to the prison. They will take you to the section where there are the convicts, और आपके लिए वो सब सफेद पट्टियां सब पाउडर की वो डाल रखी होंगी, and you will be served tea in very fancy cups and all that. Asked to go to the under trial section. Go to the wards where under trials are kept, and there you will get there and try to interact with them. So again, as you go down the social ladder, you go to the sub jails. The sub jails will tell you the whole story about illegal custody and detention. किसी के पास कोई कागज नहीं होता, हम आप उनको पूछते रहते हैं कि आपको दिखाओ. There are Delhi the district legal services authorities are there. They are supposed to. The magistrates are there. At the thana, there are many filters. But those people somehow manage to slip through all those filters and land up in a sub jail. So, and there the story of custodial torture, of extortion, that is a continuing thing with the person who is at the lower scale. Whether you will find that there are so many people who are sitting there for what? For electricity theft. कोई अपनी चक्की चला रहा है छोटी सी कहीं से तार खींच करके, उसको इलेक्ट्रिसिटी एक्ट में, because now we have so many penal enactments. Everything, if you see even something like inane like a farmer's legislation for the, how it is to be marketed and this and that, even if you look at that, we have got penal provisions in that. So अब तक हमसे ये संभला तो है नहीं कि हम किस तरह से जो एक्चुअल क्राइम है और उसके अंदर हम किस तरह से अरेस्ट करेंगे, किस तरह से हम जस्टिस के उससे हम काम करेंगे. बट we are more and more we are getting penal enactments in which it is offenses are just being put as cognizable, and which have to be registered and which have to be investigated, and on the basis of which arrests can be made. So these small fellows, the small quantities people in the NDPS, the electricity theft people, the petty crimes people, even the law and order, जहाँ पर लड़ाई झगड़े हो जाते हैं. आप सबने anecdotes बताए. Sir started off with the anecdote of his driver telling him कि sir आप कानून के हिसाब से ही हमेशा काम करना, लोगों पे बहुत असर पड़ता है. I'll tell you a small anecdote because Mr. Kumawat also, this guy, what happened to him in 1962, and today we are in 2022, And what happened this year, I'll tell you that I was out of town and my domestic help had a marriage of her son. Now we all know that when at that level there is a celebration, there is a tendency to drink a little bit, और थोड़ा सा कुछ ना कुछ हल्ला गुल्ला हो जाता है. Something happened. There was some people, some outsiders tried to come and then they roughed up each other. They hauled off the groom who was not involved in that. These were not this thing. They were just some people who were standing outside the hall in the street, and this happened. They hauled off the groom. They hauled off the groom's brother. They hauled off 2-3 other people to the thana. They kept them there while the celebration was going on, and they called me up and they said, I said, मेरी बात करवा दो. साहब से मेरी बात करवा दो, मैं उनको बोल दूंगी. And there is a grandfather who was, these are all respectable people from rural areas. They're small farmers and छोटे मोटे, but they are respectable people. They are not criminals. और वो शहर में आए हैं शादी अटेंड करने, and what is happening is कि जो उनका पोता है, उनके घर वाले, this is the side of their family that they are saying कि इनका तो पुलिस का केस हो गया और उठा के ले गए थाने. So this उठा के, and they made them stay there for 2 days. 2 days. This was not even the people who were involved. 2 दिन तक जब उनका दूसरी पार्टी से वो सारे negotiation हो गए, money changed hands and all that, and these people were destroyed. I mean, they had saved up money to do this celebration. It was the first marriage in their family and all that. पर उनका तो इतनी बेइज्जती, बोले हमारा तो सारा खाना, हमने इतना पैसा उसके ऊपर 30-40 हजार लगाया था खाने के ऊपर, हमारी इतनी बेइज्जती हो गई, पुलिस आ गई और थाने में बिठा लिया, दूल्हे को ही थाने में बिठाए रखा. Though he had nothing to do with it, he was not even there. Then some cameras were there, and then they, when they saw the footage, then they knew कि किसको हमको वो करना है. So these cases are every day going on under our noses, and what we find what in engagement with the thanas is that less and less focus on the diary entries. All the police manuals and the police rules have got a fantastic system, because it is so important and it hurts the liberty of a common person so much that policing, the way it is reflected in the police manuals, even in the old police manual, जिसको हम बदलने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि नहीं सब बदल देना चाहिए, police act भी बदल दो और उसके सारे rules बदल दो, and we have been doing this. Some things definitely needed to be changed, but जो बारीकी एक जो police manuals में है, through the diary entries and the registers and all that, that has been I think that the nuts and bolts of supervision of the supervisory officers keeping an eye on those diaries. Why are there not enough diary entries? एक क्लासिक पुलिसिंग में हमने ऐसा सुना है कि एक परिंदा भी अगर थाने में फटकता है तो उसकी एंट्री रोजनामचे में होगी, ऐसा सुनने में हमने आता है. एंड one can over the years have understood the importance of why. लेकिन ऐसा हो रहा है क्या? हमारे रोजनामचे क्या रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हैं, क्या वो as and when a illegal custody case is taken up and a roznamcha is examined, there we get to see the overwriting. Of course now by going digital, there is a this thing, but पुलिस वालों को थाने लेवल पर उसकी प्रॉब्लम भी लगती है. एंड देयर आर ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ प्रैक्टिसेस स्टिल गोइंग ऑन कि आपने उसको वो किया तो आप कब करेंगे, आप उसको लास्ट में करेंगे, पहले वो हाथ से करते हैं, उसके बाद में एक जन बैठ करके उसको फीड इन कर देता है, 12 बजने के पहले उसको टाइप कर देता है, which is again it is a malpractice. But are we looking at that malpractice and connecting it to what is the experience of the common person who is engaging with the thana? And as you go lower, like
two more minutes, please.
Sir.
Please.
So this was my main, that the smaller enactments, the not just the IPC offenses, the choti enactments hain. Number one, at the thana level, there is a very, I think there is a lack of understanding of these enactments. Only the penal powers are understood कि हाँ इसमें हमको और एक power मिल गया, ये एक offense जुड़ गया और अब हम लोगों को इसमें जो what they call उठा सकते हैं या थाने में बिठा सकते हैं. So that is going on. So that is, I just wanted to bring my concern that the ignoring the smaller procedures takes a big hit on human rights. पुलिस में फील कि अगर हम इतना प्रोसीजर करेंगे तो हम तो अपना काम कर नहीं सकते. So we have to find an answer to that. We have to make it easier for them, and we have to make it rewarding for them to follow procedure. Rather than them, they have always felt, all policemen in all thanas as one voice mostly feel that procedure हमारे लिए प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि पहले ही प्रॉब्लम थी, उसको उनको ठीक से उसको भरना नहीं आता है, या जो भी बिकॉज दे आर सो ओवरवेल्म्ड विद एवरीथिंग दैट दे फील दैट जितने हट सकते हैं हट सकते हैं, जितने निपट सकते हैं निपटा लो बिना प्रोसीजर किए. But in the long run, that is, I think, that is one of the main reasons why there is a human rights violation, because this handmaiden of justice, which is procedure, which is put in the CRPC, in the rules, in the manuals, is being made very convenient to skip, unless it's one of those cases where you can't, there's nothing that you can do but to file a case. So even these the statistics that are this thing, they're not really reflecting the real picture. The real picture is of many more people who are just being called to thanas illegally, who are being made to sit in thanas illegally, who are facing extortion from this thing, and who are then continuing to face that fear of the visit from the police thana. That is still, over the years we had, I think, a little bit climbed up in that ladder. There was talk and there was consciousness about that. But over the last few years, with so much of focus on, other kind of police action, that focus on the smallest person, on the weakest person seems to have now reduced. So since this organization is working on internal police reforms, my request would be to, focus back on the thana procedures and see that, these diary entries are done properly, because that is one safeguard that the common person has got. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Abhaji. Abhaji has made a series of important points. The first being access to justice, which is difficult for a poor man, and mostly it's the rich who can afford the lawyers. She also spoke about process is punishment, and elaborated that number of judgments, the DK Basu, during their visits to the Haryana police stations, it was not followed. And mostly the police officers had an aversion, why this DK Basu judgment and why these problems have been created. She also spoke about, gave anecdotes about that marriage party. Very rightly, she pointed out about the, apart from the formal arrest, the people being called to thanas, made to wait there, asking for the money. That's another series of harassments which happens. Let me just quote a personal experience. As a special rapporteur NHRC, I visited 4 jails, including Tihar jail, Faridabad jail, Gurgaon jail, and Chandigarh jail. I interacted with the under trials as well as juveniles there. Those juveniles, who were saying we were juveniles, but they were still there. Now, sir, let me just share that 40% of them claimed we were not involved, but false cases were framed against us. We were just standing there, or we were brought from somewhere. And almost 35% said police had asked for money and taken money. So these two things of asking for the money and booking false cases, the practice goes on, which is a gross human right violation as well. Thank you, Abhaji, for that very illustrating point. And she, of course, spoke about the procedures, the diary entries. Only problem is that diary entries can be managed, madam, except with the digital records. So maybe we must introduce the digital GD entries.